I was a critical care PA working 80 hours a week, nights, weekends, holidays. I made pretty good money, but I had no freedom. Then one phone call that I wasn't even expecting on a type of deal I wasn't even doing completely changed my life. And today I'm gonna tell you exactly how. I'm not the kind of guy who hates their former career. I absolutely loved medicine. It was meaningful. I saw some incredible things, was a part of some incredible things that the average person never gets to see. I loved the procedures I did. I loved the medicine. Most of all, I loved my teammates, whether that was nurses, fellow PAs or NPs, or physicians that I worked with. Everyone that you work with in a hospital is an incredible person, almost all of them. I absolutely loved working with them every single day. However, with a job like that, it's a grind. You know, I worked long hours. We worked 13-hour shifts. I did still, even a decade into it, plus was doing nights, weekends, holidays, certainly not all of them, but I was still doing some. And I actually kind of remember the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I was driving into Christmas night shift with 2 toddlers at home. I was listening to personal finance podcast on the way to that shift, and somebody talked about real estate, and I was like, man, I've got to get some passive income. I've got to get out of doing this as much as I'm doing this. And I didn't know I'd be where I am today when that happened, but that was, one instant I can point to that kind of started this whole thing. So what about that accidental phone call? So that happened later. I bought a couple rental units and then quickly realized the whole bigger pockets, you buy a couple rentals and you're going to be safe for life routine is not real. Like, you can't buy a couple residential houses and make a couple $100 a month and retire. It's not happening. And I learned that quickly, made a couple $100 a month off my first 2 rentals, and that's out the window with a water heater in one go, right? So I knew I needed it to be faster. I heard about direct to seller and started sending out postcards. I sent out the first batch of 700 postcards. And this was the accidental phone call. One of the first people that called me was the guy that said, hey, you mailed my house. My house isn't for sale, but I have a warehouse for sale. Do you buy warehouses? And I was like, sure. And had never even been in a commercial building, certainly not an industrial warehouse before in my life. Downloaded a commercial real estate audiobook and listened to it on the 30-minute drive to that building, walked that building with that seller, and he wanted 500 grand for it, which seemed like a good deal for 2 pretty big warehouses. So put it under contract and was like, oh crap, now I got to figure out what to do with this property and find someone that knows what the heck they're doing. So from there, that accidental phone call led to some relationships. So I had previously met folks in commercial real estate at a local real estate meetup, or they had transitioned from residential to commercial. I reached out to those individuals, developed a relationship with them. We ended up actually not buying that industrial warehouse. So that's the crazy thing. This accidental phone call that changed my life, I didn't even buy that property. And I was really bummed at the time, and it's a different story I will get into on why I didn't buy it. But didn't buy that property. However, that relationship that I formed through the process of attempting to buy that property and having that individual help me led to that individual later telling me about 2 office buildings that he was looking at buying, that he thought were good deals, but he needed some help with the funding. So that relationship led to the deal I ultimately did buy. And so the deal we did, the first deal we bought, was 2 office buildings. We bought it in the middle of COVID when everybody was scared of office. I mean, they're still scared of office to some degree, but they were even more so then. They were foreclosed on, the bank owned them, they were vacant, and we bought them both. They were each 20,000 square foot for a total of 40,000 square foot. We bought them for $825,000. We knew we had some work to put into them. We originally thought we were gonna need to put in about 125 grand, 150 grand of mostly cosmetic and minor repairs. That ultimately ended up turning into 300 grand, which we'll talk about that in another one of these videos. But that relationship led to that deal. And the way that I got into that deal, and this is important for you guys too, is that individual didn't need me to buy the property. He needed help with funding. I had been talking real estate. I had been doing some residential real estate. I had been talking real estate with everyone in my own network. They probably got tired of me talking about it. But through the course of doing that, I had met several other individuals in my network already who were high income professionals like myself. And these 2 happened to be physicians, but they really loved what we were doing. I pitched the deal to them, and they both wanted to get on it and be partners. So they invested in our first deal. So we took 2 capital partners, investors, into the LLC that bought the property. They each invested $150,000 with us for an ownership of the LLC that bought that building. And we're going to go deep and spend a lot of episodes talking about how to fund these, because it can get really technical. It's a little difficult, and there's a lot of important rules and regulations you need to know about that. But for this first story, just understand that we got a bridge loan that was our primary debt. And then we had those 2 individuals come in for $300,000, and that is how we purchased that property. Up front, initially, I did not have any of my own money in that property. Eventually, as things happened and that rehab budget exploded, I did have some of my own money in that property, but up front, I didn't have any money in it at that time. So in the background while all that's happening, I did not immediately give up on residential real estate. I kind of accidentally started a wholesale company, but for me, since day one, it has been commercial real estate. So I got tired of the transactional grind of trying to close on 75 plus properties a year, like you have to do in the residential space, and decided to slow down that business and increase the commercial business, because we were buying about 1 to 2 commercial properties a year while spending the majority of our time on the residential business. So that's absolutely a model you can run. But for me, I wanted to focus on commercial. So as I winded down the residential business, we ramped up how much commercial property we were buying and went from buying 1 or 2 to 6 to 7. And now we're kind of in the 12 to 15 purchases a year range. So that's where we are today. I have a lot less employees. I have 5 employees. They're all A players, rock stars, but you don't need some big, massive team to buy commercial real estate. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We own roughly 15 commercial buildings. Like I said, I have at least 2 of every single asset class. So that's industrial, retail, office, multifamily, and storage. I personally like industrial the best. But I have a little bit of everything. I understand the pros and cons of everything. They all work. They all have their own pros and cons, and you have to kind of figure out which one you're going to like best, which I think you really have to do by trying some of them. I don't think you can just pick it before you do it. So just kind of want to end this episode by saying, if you are a high net worth individual who feels stuck, maybe you feel stuck in your career and you want to get out. Maybe you don't. Maybe you love your career like I did, and you just feel stuck financially and need another reliable stream of cash flow, then this channel is absolutely for you. We're gonna make more regular content. We're gonna make specific content here every single week. So please subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.